Norm and I an admit card. We have to get a pass. Like in South Africa, we had to have papers and whatnot. For us to get into the 21st century, but it allows the program to roll. We're a little bit off on our visual feed today, so you'll be able to hear the program, and there'll be a podcast version of the program
later. We'll put it to YouTube.
Okay.
We'll put it on YouTube.
See, we'll let the American of the 21st century, tell us how all that stuff gets done. Listen, I want to take today's program to cover two basic lines of thought. But as I do this, I'm probably going to drift into some other pieces that I think also should be discussed. The first is the Republican Party. I don't quite understand this. The Democrats still have control 51-49 of the Senate. The Democrats control the White House. The Republicans have a 4-vote majority in the House of Representatives. I'm not understanding why the Democrats are not able to negotiate with some of all the Republicans can't be crazy, right? I mean, if there's 435 members of the House of Representatives and 222 of them are Republicans, are you telling me that none of those 222 Republicans can agree with any shading of anything that any of the Democrats are talking about? I don't understand how we can't get legislation done by negotiating with different people in the Republican Party and people in the Republican Party negotiating with different people in the Democratic Party and coming up with things that might not be the ideal thing that either side wants, but gives you a good chunk of one side versus a good chunk of the other side. Why doesn't that happen all the time? But I'm not asking you all that, because if you all knew, you'd be on the air right now telling me. But we're asking the audience if you can help us to understand why that does not occur. As I recall growing up, you could get Jake Javits to go along with stuff that you wouldn't be able to get, I'm trying to think of who like Liz Cheney. You might not be able to get her to go along with something that Jake Javits would have gone along with. On the alternate side, Liz Cheney might not have been able to get 100% of what she wanted from, say, Joe Manchin. But because Joe Manchin was a conservative Democrat and Cheney is a conservative Republican, you would think that in the word conservative, there are some things that are in common between Cheney's worldview and Joe Manchin's worldview, and that you could come up with measures that both of them could agree with and then sell it to the rest of the people in their party.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that occur all the time? Why is that not the norm? It's almost like if you don't go for 100% of what some set of people, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, whatever they are, in your party, if you don't go 100% for what they go for, then you're not considered to be a partner in the Republican caucus. And even the Democrats. I mean, Democrats seem to become more lockstep, than they have been in the past. Now I understand why they do that, but there doesn't seem to be any traction in the Democrats trying to find relationships between different people in the Republican Party who might be less conservative than other people. Nobody's 100% anything, I don't think, right? I'm a conservative person. If you're asking me about work ethic, if you're asking me about honesty, if you're asking me about sexuality, you're asking me about going to church, I'm as conservative as they get. But if you're negotiating with me about, let's make that something silly. Let's make it that everybody should go to church, right? So we make that the issue.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, well, I don't agree with that.
Right.
I'm not with that. So I might negotiate with you and say, well, how about we say everybody go to church at least 2 times a month, and in return for that, all your kids have to go to school 5 days a week every single day of the week and not miss a day. That would be the negotiation. Those are two conservative positions. Maybe we can come to some happy medium between one and the other.
Those are good terms, Mr. Hare. Good terms.
I would think that's why I went with those safe things to talk about, because y'all can't get too mad at me about those things. But my point is that it seems like you should be able to find some things on every issue. It seems to me that there's a conservative view of that issue and there's a progressive view of that issue, and everybody should be able to find something along that continuum that people would say, I don't like all of what you're talking about, but I do like that part of it.
Yeah.
On each side. You should be able to get traction for legislation, around that.
Yeah. It seems like somewhere along the lines, there's like a disconnect somewhere. And for whatever reason, especially in the Republican Party, I have to admit, they do have a sense of staying together typeness. The Democrats, which I don't really understand. I think we should fight more fervently for what we want, but we're not always, we don't want to be combative, I would say, or I'm not even going to say combative. I'm going to say just go against things or make it tough. We have to be able to go after what we want and be together. The same way that the Republicans are. Right. They stick together.
See, this sort of began under Denny Hastert, who used to be the Speaker of the House in the early 90s, and Newt Gingrich, who became Speaker of the House.
Okay.
And they evolved this ideation that if the Republicans had the majority in the legislature, that no bill could be brought before the legislature to be voted on unless you first had an internal party vote amongst the Republicans in the House of Representatives. And if you couldn't get a majority of them to go for the bill, then you couldn't bring the bill to the floor for a vote at all, if the Republicans had control of the House.
The Republicans don't deviate at all.
Right.
There's no leeway. If it's not that particular way of what they want, they'll hold you.
And they act like that's a good thing. The fact that they don't deviate, from that lockstep, all or nothing, kind of a deal. But if you play the game that way, you create a stifling of development. There are always ideas that are somewhat better for your camp than they are for another camp, and you have to live with that. If there's value in something, you should try to get the value on the table and do it in a way that gives you most of the protection that you want, for your camp.
Well, the ideals which we should all represent as a people is what's democratic and what's best for the people altogether. And that doesn't always hold true. We're not able to accomplish that with whatever the best idea is, because there's a, as I say, a kind of a disconnect, and they will not side even with us if it's right.
Right. And so the reason why I talk about this as a lead into this discussion is that the idea of weaponizing the tools of government so that you can use them to victimize people, to punish people, to force people to come in line with whatever it is that is your, political position. That kind of ideation did not exist in the 1950s and the 1960s, but it became something that was practiced in the 1990s and 2000s, and definitely ever since Donald Trump, arose to become president of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
This has become the modus operandi,
yeah.
That you use the tools of government almost in the way that the mob does it. Let me give you, I don't like to say stuff off the top of my head. I went to an article written by Allie Griffin. It was entitled, "Trump Sought to Have Political Opponents Investigated by the IRS." And remember, these are the same Republicans that are holding these House oversight, committee meetings on the weaponization of government. claiming that Joe Biden has been using the government to weaponize as a weapon against citizens and political opponents in the United States. But there's a history here, and that history has not been visited with and has not been accounted for. So what Allie Griffin talks about is Donald Trump attempted to weaponize the Internal Revenue Service and repeatedly asked his former chief of staff, John Kelly, to have the IRS investigate his political opponents. Now, that's got to be as illegal as something can be. I don't know if you can be more illegal than that.
Yes, sir.
The Trump White House chief of staff, John Kelly, told the New York Times that Trump demanded him to get the IRS on former FBI Director James Comey and his deputy, Andrew McCabe, after the men criticized him. So they said something, not even criticizing Trump. They just said something critical of something that Trump said. And for that, he sicked the IRS on them. Now, I say he sicked the IRS on them. I want you to know that this actually happened. This wasn't just something that Trump said in front of his chief of staff, John Kelly. This actually got done. The revelation came after Comey and McCabe were selected for a rare and intense audit by the IRS in the years following Kelly's departure from being chief of staff under Trump. The requests were in addition to Trump's more widely reported attempts to use the Justice Department against his critics. Kelly says that Trump thought that Kelly would blindly fulfill the president's request and be loyal to him because I'm the boss and you're my flunky. Everybody who works for the executive branch of government is my flunky. So when I ask you to do something, I expect you to do it. Kelly says that he told Trump that, you know, we're loyal to our oath to the Constitution. We're not loyal to you as a person. And he said, but Trump ignored that belief and continued to push him and others to take revenge on his critics through their governmental authorities and their powers. Kelly said that Trump told him, or Kelly felt that if Trump told you to slit someone's throat, that you should do it because I'm Donald Trump. I'm president of the United States. Right. When I snap my fingers, the world's supposed to change to whatever it is I snap my fingers. It's like that Bewitched movie. You know, every time the lady would twitch her nose one way or the other, the world would change. Right.
Well, yeah, in Trump's mind, you guys know, in Trump's mind, it's like, I'm the king. So make it happen. I don't care what it is. Here's what I want it to be. Make it happen.
See, which tells you that Trump doesn't read. Because the word king does not appear, it doesn't appear anywhere in the Constitution of the United States, right? Right. The word president appears, right? But not the word king. But when he saw the word president, it was only a 4-letter word, king.
That's correct.
That's all. And you know, 4-letter words.
Absolutely correct.
4-letter words have a bad history in this country. Right. You do know that most of the ugly things that you say in this country are spelled with 4 letters.
4-letter words.
Just wanted to put that out there, right? Yeah. And so Kelly told Trump, you know, that it's inappropriate, it's illegal, it's against our integrity. He said the IRS knows what it's doing. And what you're talking about is not a good idea. You're going to set something in motion that you can't take out of motion if you go that way. But after Kelly left the White House, Trump and a political appointee was leading the IRS. Both Comey and McCabe were informed that they were being audited. Comey was informed in 2000 that his 2017 returns were being audited, and McCabe was informed that his 2019 returns were being audited. Now, when you get audited by the IRS for a special audit, you need to have a CPA, you know, with you. You need to have a tax attorney, you know, with you. Mm-hmm. You may need to have like a professional boxer, you know, in the ring with you, because, you know, this is going to cost you a lot of time. Right. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And that's what Trump was doing. So even if there was nothing to investigate, just putting people through the investigation would be so punishing for people that they would like, I'm never going to cross this guy again. I just can't afford it. So Comey's tax return was one of 5,000 tax returns that were selected for what they refer to as an invasive audit out of 153 million total returns that were filed in 2017. McCabe was one of 8,000 people selected for the audit of 154 million tax returns that were filed for that year. So Trump claims now this is a total fiction created by a psycho. John Kelly, he never said this before. He just made this up now because he's become irrelevant. None of what Trump says ever makes any sense. I mean, why would the words that he said have anything to do with what John Kelly said? Because they don't. Mm-hmm. Kelly said that Trump also sought to have the IRS and the Justice Department investigate Hillary Clinton, to investigate former CIA Director John Brennan, to investigate the founder of Amazon and the owner of the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, to investigate the lead FBI agent of the Russia investigation, Peter Strzok, and to investigate an FBI official, Lisa Page. Now, he wanted them investigated because they said something in their email.
But he wants the attention taken off of him.
Right.
Put it on other people.
Right. Well, they said something, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok were dating each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had a little stuff going on, right? And in the midst of their being cute with each other, they said something smart-alecky about Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Now, it didn't even have anything to do with their politics, because they weren't, like, working on behalf of Donald Trump. But the fact that they said something smart, like a smart-aleck remark about Donald Trump, mm-hmm. Trump didn't appreciate that.
Right.
So he wanted them to get investigated, too. So using the power of the IRS to as a weapon to punish people, to victimize people, to cost people dearly so that they would never want to cross Trump again. That's what weaponizing does. Executive branch employees, including the president, are breaking the law if they request directly or indirectly that the IRS conduct an investigation or an audit of any taxpayer. The U.S. government, whether it's the IRS or the Justice Department, should never be weaponized or used to retaliate, and certainly not because someone criticizes you in the press or is your political opponent. That's according to John Kelly. Another article written by David Graham, I know we just got a bit before the break. This article's title was entitled "Trump's Department of Justice Was More Dangerous Than We Knew." Did we have a caller hanging on?
No, that was spam.
Oh, a spam. You had a spam caller?
Yeah, business call for Amazon for the radio
this is what
station.
happens when you become a citizen of the 21st century. See, in the 20th century, the spam people couldn't reach me, right? But they seem to be able to reach you in the 21st century. Yeah. But it's okay. We'll let that slide. But this article was in the Atlantic magazine in June of 2021. And the New York Times reported in this article that the Justice Department subpoenaed the Apple Corporation to obtain data from accounts belonging to Democratic members of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell. Now think about that for a second. Trump got the Justice Department to subpoena Apple. Apple's the big, tech corporation, to try to get Apple to go find accounts, Apple accounts that belong to Democratic members of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, and their aides. Even one of their children, they wanted to have the accounts of those children as part of an investigation into leaks about Trump's associates' ties to Russia. Even after the probes produced few results, Attorney General Bill Barr, who was not there at the beginning, Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General of record when this all began. But when Bill Barr became the Attorney General, he insisted on keeping these prosecutions or these investigations leading to prosecution. He insisted on keeping those investigations alive. These were snippets of ugly revelations about the Trump Justice Department that have emerged since January 20th. Trump prosecutors sought to compel records of reporters from the Washington Post, CNN, and the Times. All the while, the Department of Justice failed to prepare for right-wing violence because it was focused on Antifa, and even saw a plot by the Assistant Attorney General and the President to oust the acting Attorney General in order to overturn the results of the presidential election. They didn't want to investigate that stuff. Overturning a presidential election, you couldn't get the Justice Department to do that stuff, but you get the Justice Department to try to figure out where Hunter Biden's briefcase was.
Hey, Mr. Hare, it seems to me that Trump, he utilizes like fear tactics as far as weaponizing the government, and putting the IRS and the Justice Department against anybody that opposes him or what he says, and ultimately, this works out as a way of him diverting the attention that should be on him and putting the onus somewhere else, kind of like a form of gaslighting.
I was going to say, that's your favorite term.
Yeah,
It's gaslighting, right?
And you taught it to me, Mr. Hare. I'm using it.
But that's exactly right, you know, and there's another term called projection. And projection is that somebody accuses you of what they themselves are doing so that you now have to defend yourself against the accusation. And all the time you're spending defending yourself against the accusation, not only are people not looking at you, people are focusing on, well, did he really do that?
Right.
Is that really true?
Right.
You know, and so on, right? And so it even creates a resume of possible guilt, you know, on your end for something you didn't do at all.
Right. And that's the whole idea. That's what he wants.
Right.
Exactly what he wants.
That's Trump's MO. And of course, these are the same people, the same Republican legislators who felt that the January 6th insurrection was a rowdy tourist visit. You know, a tourist visit, you know, they're eating ice cream cones and snow cones and cotton candy.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff fell on the ground, you know, and some of the Capitol Police had to pick the stuff up. It was that kind of a thing.
Right.
It wasn't an insurrection.
Right.
Why would you all think that?
Right.
Just because you saw it on television, 6,000 people walking up the stairs or rushing up the stairs, breaking windows, you know, pummeling people, stabbing people with flagpoles, beating people with their helmets, crushing people indoors.
That's okay, Mr. American good old boys.
So now we got what's his name? Tucker Carlson has gotten from Kevin McCarthy has gotten the video, because McCarthy is the Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. He has the authority now to be able to look at evidence that was surfaced, you know, in the January 6th investigation. So he got all of the video that was taken during the insurrection and gave this video to Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker Carlson, who hasn't told the truth once since he was born, he even lied about being born. That's really not Tucker Carlson. That's really an imposter, right? Because nobody could lie as much as Tucker Carlson does and be a real human being. But Tucker Carlson was given something like 44,000 hours of videotape that was taken during the course of the insurrection. Mm-hmm. Now, you saw when the investigation was underway, when the Democrats were in control of the legislature, they did a very meticulous investigation. Everything that they said, they showed you where they got it from. Mm-hmm. They showed you on tape. You heard it in an audio tape. You saw it on a videotape. You saw actual records that proved every single thing that the Democrats put forward during the course of that investigation. Mm-hmm. The Republicans only give you rhetoric. They don't give you anything that you can actually hang your hat on. So now what they're going to do is take the videotape and probably find something where somebody was handing like a chocolate malt, drink to a police officer and say, "See, this is what they were doing. They were going to get chocolate malt, for the police."
You know they're going to look for stuff, anything,
of course
anything
they are.
Like that.
And if they can't find the chocolate malt, they're going to find something that looks like a cup, right, and they're going to put a little balloon in the picture it says this was a chocolate malt. I mean,
Right.
it's going to be that kind of insanity.
Wow.
So projection is people accusing you of what they're doing.
Right.
So the Republicans got control of the House. They started doing these, off the wall investigations like the weaponization of the government, against the citizens, because they were the ones weaponizing the government against citizens. Well, I guess they don't consider Democrats to be citizens. So whatever they consider Democrats to be, they were weaponizing the government against Democrats. And so to take the pressure off of them so that you don't look at them and say, well, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's not right. They accuse you of doing it. So that now you got to spend all kind of time trying to figure out how to defend yourself from something that never occurred. I need for you all to understand it's very hard to defend yourself from something that never occurred. Because if it never occurred, there's no evidence of it never occurring.
Right.
The only evidence you have of it never occurring is you saying, I didn't do that. You're just lying. I didn't do that. So we'll prove that you didn't do it.
Right.
Well, I don't have any proof. I didn't do it.
Right.
That's my proof. I didn't do it. Right. See, so that's what projection does, right? And you can see the sort of vice that it puts the accused person in, right? So I think we're going to take a quick break in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to just lay out for you a little bit of my thesis that Ron DeSantis, I know you all like him. Don't act like you don't like him. This guy became the governor. He was a congressperson, and he became the governor of Florida, right? And, he couldn't get enough votes to become governor of Florida unless a lot of you people in Florida liked him. And there's a whole lot of people who don't live in Florida who I think also liked him because you like his game, because he's telling those woke people, that let me give you a little woke note. Florida came into the Union to become a part of the United States of America because the government of the United States needed to close off the back door in this country from which enslaved people in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Arkansas, and Mississippi were escaping and fleeing. They would flee into Georgia, found out that Georgia was a penal colony, wasn't smart to go to Georgia, and they would run south into Florida. So the United States worked really hard at the Spanish-American, war type stuff. I don't think I think the Florida was acquired before the Spanish-American War. There was another struggle between Spain and the United States. But the point is that the United States' goal was to acquire Florida so that they could establish United States law over Florida and capture fugitive African people who were enslaved, who had gotten away from those plantations, to capture them and put them back on those plantations. That's the history of Florida. Florida became a state for the purpose of keeping African enslaved people from being able to get away. Because Florida was the back door, right? When you get on the other side of Florida, you're in the Gulf of Mexico or you're in the Caribbean Sea, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a way out, right? Now, in the Caribbean, if you're an African person and you escape to the South and manage to get to the Caribbean, you can disappear in the population because almost everybody in the Caribbean is black. Right. Whereas in the United States, if you escape from a plantation in, say, Alabama, and you run north, who you gonna be running into when you run north?
Your captors.
Mostly white people, right? Yeah. So everywhere you go, you're gonna look like the oddball, right? Because that's what Bartolomé Las Casas, the Archbishop of the Indians of Hispaniola, that's what he centered as a premise. The idea was that when these Native Americans that they were enslaving, when they ran away, they would disappear into the population, and you wouldn't know who was a slave and who wasn't because they all looked the same. Right. He said, but the negras, that was the Spanish word that what that word. You follow me, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to say that word out loud. But the negras, he said, when they run away, wherever they go, they will still be black. Right. And that began the idea of making the word enslaved and the word black mean the same thing.
So when I hear these Latin women say negra to me, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, from their perspective, when they say negras, they mean black. They mean in their mind.
They mean black.
They're saying the same thing that you mean when you say the word black.
Correct.
But when that word migrated into the English-speaking country of the United States, it didn't stay negras anymore, right? It became Negroes, right? And the colloquial, I'm being nice, the colloquial, idiomatic way of expressing that term became what we today now call the N-word. Okay. See, that's those 21st century people. That's 21st century people speaking into the mic. Okay?
You haven't heard it until you heard a black woman that's upset what you said. Woo! Now that really hurts.
It should hurt. So listen, why don't we take our break and let me get into this DeSantis stuff. So if you all stick with us, hopefully we're making some sense. We look forward to talking to you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Tune in 91.3 FM WBNY Mondays 6 p.m. for Mental Health Versus, where Carl Shalahorn mashes up music and mental health in a way you've never heard before. Carl dives into topics such as trauma, depression, and anxiety with compelling guests and captivating music. Mental Health Versus, a show both entertaining and informative. Check out Mental Health Versus Mondays at 6 p.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm McCarter, in-studio audience of one, and we're here with our admit card into the 21st century, Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Thanks, guys, for sticking around. I want to go to an article written by Zach Anderson. It was entitled "Emotional Meeting Ends with DeSantis' New College of Florida Board Abolishing its Diversity Office." I'm going to try to help us to understand a little bit about who this Ron DeSantis is. Now, me telling you about who Ron DeSantis is may be alerting a lot of you and saying, gosh, I didn't know he was like that. We want him. You know, that could be the case. So I might be educating some of you that want somebody like him.
Right, that's correct, yeah.
To be your president.
That's right.
Right? Or hopefully I'm warning you that somebody like him could become your president. Just like we tried to warn you in 2015 that somebody like Donald Trump could become your president, and be careful what you ask for because you could get it.
That's right.
You didn't hear me. You thought that I was deluding. You said, oh no, he's a businessman. Oh no, he's wealthy. Oh no, he knows how to do things.
I was actually saying that too.
I know you did. I was trying not to blame it on you. Norm was rocking his head up and down, saying, "Yep, that's what he was saying. That's what he was saying." But I didn't want to put that on you. But I appreciate you owning up to it, okay? Because you did. You know, you thought that, well, you know, this guy is a successful businessman.
Yeah, yep.
You know, he's done so much. He's got property all over New York City.
Yep.
He's the joint. He's a billionaire.
Yep.
We need that kind of experience and skill for the United States.
That was my initial thought.
Yep. And so he showed you that the very first thing he knew how to do was to give away $400 billion of your money. That's the first thing he did.
Yep.
And the second thing he did that was so great was he allowed a pandemic to unfold in the United States and did virtually nothing to stop it. Now, he wants to get credit for the vaccine that was created a year after we started having the pandemic in this country. I'll give him credit for that. But he's also the chief person, keeping people from taking the vaccine, because he joined the people that were anti-vaccine.
Wow.
And so he slowed down people getting the vaccine. The record shows that his behavior out of the 1.1 million people that died from the COVID or the coronavirus infection in this country, something like 300 to 400,000 of those people would not have died if this dude had done the right thing.
Wow.
In terms of standing behind the Center for the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. If he had stood behind them and stood strong for the policies, shutting down government, finding where the virus was, keeping the virus where it was, keeping it from getting into places where it wasn't, and getting this thing beat down and using the tools that were available to him to do that, we wouldn't have had all those 300,000 or 400,000 people dead.
Mr. Hare, I'm not wanting to interrupt, but just want to ask you, I'm wondering if we really can give him credit for the vaccine. Wasn't he a proponent against the vaccine in the beginning?
He put, if I'm not mistaken, he put $12.5 billion set aside in the budget for the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
And said, here's money, go after this money and produce us a vaccine.
Right.
He even had a name for it. It was like a Star Wars name or something. I forgot what the name he had for his campaign. But my point is that you give him credit for that.
You got to give him credit.
Right. Yeah. Now, I don't give him that much credit because I got to figure if you got a market of 8 billion people that need this vaccine and you can come up with a way to put a vaccine together that costs, say, $20, per vaccine, then you got 20 times 8 billion, that's 160 billion doses of this vaccine that are going to be given in the course of a year. And if you're getting $20 a pop, that's a bunch of money,
yes,
right?
Sir.
And so I'm thinking that pharmaceutical companies are going to invest $12 billion on their own, to get that done. So I'm not that excited about the fact that he did that.
Could it be also that he may have padded his pockets in a way?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. You would say that because you're a citizen. And so you could get away with saying that. I'll just sit on the sidelines and be a witness to the fact that you said that.
Okay, Mr. Hare.
Well, I would confirm with Norm and say that no, he probably did not directly get money, but the pharmaceutical companies now they making money and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Trump, thanks, man."
Kickback,
a little kickback, right?
Government kickback.
Just look at it logically, right? If you have 330 million people in the United States and all of them need the vaccine, and it's $20 per vaccine, that's $6 billion worth of business for just one shot.
Right.
And you're going to get 4 or 5 of these shots, over the course of a year and a half period. So this is tremendous money.
Right.
So it seems to me the incentive to go after this vaccine was already there. But I'm not going to quibble about little stuff. So if you want to give him credit, for developing the vaccine, I'm not going to argue with you about that. What I will argue with you about is when the vaccine became available, you joined people in Michigan who actually conspired to kidnap the governor, what's her name, Gretchen Whitmer?
Wow.
To kidnap the governor of Michigan, to take her out to some lodge someplace, grill her, try her or not absentia, but in the wild, try her in the wild, and then hang her publicly and leave her hanging from a tree. You actually had people doing this, and Donald Trump supported them more than he supported Gretchen Whitmer. In other words, he refers to these people as, well, there's a lot of people that are real upset, about their liberty, being taken away, being forced to take these vaccines and having their businesses, shut down. A lot of people feeling bad about that, and that's why they're acting like that, so as if it's Gretchen Whitmer's fault. Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of a state. She's got a pandemic rolling all through her state. The only way that she can control this thing is to reduce the places where the where the virus is and keep the virus from the places where the virus isn't. And then try to do everything you can to use your medical and disease control apparatus to try to reduce the virus in the places where it is and extinguish it. That's how you get the virus under control. Why would you not be on her side? Why would you be on the side of some crazy people who say, "Oh no, vaccines have arsenic in it"? The vaccines are gonna kill people. Even if the vaccine killed a few people, even if that's true, you were having something like 2% of the people who caught this virus dying from the virus. Mm-hmm. That means of 100,000 people, 2,000 of them died from the virus.
Right.
You were having something in the area of 3,000 to 5,000 people a day dying from the virus.
Right.
Now, of the people that got vaccinated, you may have maybe 20 or 30 out of 1 million people that ultimately went into the hospital, had them pipes put in their neck, and then died because they weren't able to recover, from the virus.
Right.
You're telling me that a move that you made that reduced the number of deaths from 3,000 to 5,000 a day to 300 or 400 a day, that you're going to attack the vaccine that brought those deaths down by 90%. You're going to attack the vaccine as opposed to attacking the people who don't want the vaccine to be distributed to everybody in the country. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. But we're talking about Ron DeSantis, so y'all keep going back to Donald Trump. But we'll get to Donald Trump in a second. Ron DeSantis, as the governor of Florida, had the ability to appoint 6 of the 9 trustees of a college in Florida called New College, and he then got them to vote to abolish the office that was handling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at New College. He says this included testimony from students who were worried that a board reshaped by Governor Ron DeSantis is making the school unwelcoming to minorities. And of course, that's it. I mean, if you're a black or brown or Asian person or an indigenous American person, why would you want to go to a university that doesn't welcome diversity, that doesn't welcome inclusion, that doesn't welcome, making sure that you have participation in every part of your university from the different sets of people that make up the public of the United States? Why would you not want that? DeSantis appointed 6 members to the New College Board on January 6th. Interesting, just a year after the insurrection, in an effort to transform the school, putting the small Sarasota institution at the center of the GOP's nationwide pushback on education policies that are aimed at supporting historically marginalized groups, including racial minorities and LGBTQ individuals. DeSantis has emerged as a key figure in this debate after he pushed through legislation governing how K-12 schools discuss race and gender identity. Now remember, he pushed this through the legislature. So DeSantis has enough support in the Assembly and the State Senate in Florida that both houses of the legislature agreed on a bill that was sent to Ron DeSantis that he signed that basically changes the way that race and gender are discussed in K-12 schools, as if Ron DeSantis even knows enough about K-12 education to have an opinion about it. But I digress. Eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have become a major flashpoint for so-called conservatives and a target of DeSantis throughout Florida's public university system. It's among the first substantive actions by New College's revamped board, which also fired the former president last month and hired DeSantis' ally, Richard Corcoran, as interim president. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a review of these DEI programs that DeSantis is trying to get abolished across the university system and the K through 12 system in Florida. But before we get to there, I got to talk about something I haven't talked about before, and I just want to get your thought about this as an alternate thought. For whatever reason, advocates for including wider perspectives in the history and social studies curriculums that are taught in K through 12 and through the university system, that they seek to include something called Black queer history. Let me just work
They seek to include that?
To include that.
Okay.
Okay. And this is why I wanted you to hit this, because I'm pretty sure that you all never heard of this before. And I know I never heard of this before. But here's what the report says. It says Black History Month is an opportunity for us to highlight. This is in a report called Black History Month X Stonewall. And I think Stonewall has to do with that. I think it was a bar, in New York that was raided, by the police, and it turned into a big thing, and people died, in the course of this outbreak, and it turned into this major evolution of protest on behalf of civil rights for people that have different gender identity than just being male or being female. Did I say that the right way? You all got to help me make sure that I'm staying in the right.
Yeah, I think we understand what you're saying.
Okay. So the beginning of the article says Black History Month is an opportunity for us to highlight the work and contributions of Black LGBTQ plus people, which are too often forgotten and erased from history. Then goes on to say Black people have always been at the center of the LGBTQ plus liberation movement, from Marsha P. Johnson and Stormy DeLavery, who were major figures in the Stonewall uprisings of 1969, to modern-day leaders like Monroe Bergdorf and Lady Phil. Now, just work with me for a second. Do you remember any of these names in the civil rights movement that I know y'all didn't grow up with that, so y'all young. Y'all were the beneficiaries of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. Tell the truth.
Yeah,
by the time y'all went to school, the schools were already integrated, and you already had Black studies curriculums.
Yeah, that's true.
All y'all had Black teachers and whatnot.
Yeah, we did.
You didn't go through me, okay, who never saw a Black teacher until I was in my first graduate school program.
Wow. I
had him for one term and never had another Black teacher again in my entire life. Never had a Black studies course made available to me in my entire life. All the stuff that I learned about Black history, I taught myself. So I just want to get that out there, that, again, I'm being victimized like I was with those relief checks. I know you don't like me coming back to this, right? But
let it go, Mr. Hare, let it go.
Yeah, you victimize me all the time. I didn't get any relief checks. I didn't get any Black teachers.
Can't let that go, guys.
I didn't get any Black teachers. I didn't get any Black, core studies. So, I mean, as we go along.
You sound like my brothers and sisters. They go, yeah, you was able to get a college education and this and that.
So I just want to get that out there. I can't quite get it off my chest, but I'm trying to get that done.
Mr. Hare, without all those things, you turned out all right.
That's right. That's right.
I found my way out of the wilderness.
That's right. So, and you better off than probably most of us. Anyway.
Absolutely. But listen, these names that these people are talking about in this article, have you all ever heard of these people in the civil rights movement?
Repeat them again.
So this is somebody called Marsha P. Johnson, Someone
familiar.
called Stormy DeLavery. Somebody called Monroe Bergdorf, and somebody called Lady Phil. Now I remember Charles Lowry. I remember Ralph Abernathy. I remember this guy.
Ralph Abernathy.
Remember this guy? Well, you might even know him. His name was something like Martin Luther King.
Yeah, we all know him.
You know, I remember people like that, right? You know, in the civil rights movement. You know, Rosa Parks. You know, and so on. But I don't remember these people being in the civil rights movement.
Well, when you think about it, though, they probably was championing a cause that back then was, you know, they probably had a big struggle. So you got to give them some credit, especially if they've been pushing, and then eventually.
You know what? I'm down with that. I'm down with you teaching a course that covers this, what he's referring, whoever wrote this article, refers to as queer history. I'm down with you teaching that. I would go and learn so I can understand and have in my resume of thought, you know, this education. Down with that. What I don't understand is, why do you connect that to Black history? Black history to me is the history of the evolution of the presence of African people in this world. Go ahead.
I'd just like to pose a question, just wondering, were all of these people African American, the people that you just named?
I don't know whether their names don't sound African American to me.
Okay, I just was wondering, but it would seem as if that's why they put them in with Black history.
Well, but the people who wrote this article are including these people in the discussion of Black history. So I assume that whether they're Black or not, they were at least people that were instrumental in the role of Black people in the civil rights movement.
Okay.
My query is, if we're talking about Black history as one thing, I think that is a different discipline than the issue of Black queer history. I don't even know if Black queer history is a different discipline than just queer history. I don't know what the distinction is between the two, but whatever they are, those are different issues than the issues of Black history.
I think as far as representation.
No, but I just got to say this one thing.
Sorry.
I'm gonna hit you right, but I just want to say this one thing. When we talk about queer history, I need for you to understand, when enslavement was the rule of the day in the United States, enslavers would take Black children, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old Black children,
yes, sir,
and have them brought into their bedrooms and used as bed warmers. That's what they called them.
Yes, sir.
They called them bed warmers, right? They would lay over the legs of these enslavers, right, to keep their legs warm. I guarantee you that those people that were taking African children and putting them over their legs to warm their legs didn't stop there.
Right.
That they're the same kind of people you're talking about with this Stonewall mess, right? The same kind of people. See, so the reason why I can't feel you when you try to tie queer history, whatever that means, to Black history is because queer people participated in the assault and the Holocaust inflicted on African people, but African people did not participate in a assault on queer people. We didn't have control over their lives, but they had control over our lives, and they used that control in ways that well, I don't want to go down all of the road I'm about to go down.
There's probably different distinctions too, so.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out there, you know, that when I hear, you know, people objecting to Ron DeSantis because he doesn't like the LGBTQ stuff they include in Black history, I don't want to say that I agree or disagree. I don't really understand what the LGBTQ element is to the civil rights movement, because I was a part of the civil rights movement. I was out there in the street. I was in Selma in 1965, right? I mean, I was a teenager. I went to jail, you know, in 1965. I went to jail 26 different times.
Wow.
Fighting for the right to have citizenship rights in this country. I didn't fight for anything new for me. I just fought for the right to have my rights as a citizen to be respected.
Yes, sir.
Period.
Yes, sir.
I didn't ask for anything else. I don't want no money. I didn't want I don't want reparations. I didn't ask you for spit. All I asked you to do was to respect my rights as a citizen.
Yeah.
And if you don't respect my rights as a citizen, respect the fact that I'm going to do something to hurt you if you don't. I'm not going to just talk to you. I'm going to hurt you. Can I be real blunt about it?
I feel you, Mr. Hare. I feel you.
Now that's the world that I grew up in, okay? I grew up in that world, I wore the powder blue shirts, and the leather jackets, and I had a sword, and I had a holster for my rifle, and so on. I mean, that's the world that I grew up in. I fought for that. I didn't fight for this LGBTQ stuff. That was not even something that was on the horizon, right?
Right.
So it's not that I object to the LGBTQ stuff. It just didn't have anything to do with the movement that I was fighting in.
Right.
They were not synonymous.
I respect what you're saying. I just wanted to ask a question. My thing was, and what I was trying to get at is, do they just want to be put in with the struggle because they are, or they feel like they are a form of Black history in their own right?
You are absolutely right. They want to join themselves onto the civil rights movement to make themselves be an extension of the civil rights movement.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah. That gives velocity, to their message.
Well,
to their particular struggle.
Well, I could see where they, let's say a Black man or Black woman have to deal with the same civil rights we have to, and then being queer on top of that. So I could maybe, it'd be nice to have somebody who can call in or come in and talk to us, about that, if there is a history.
Just help us to understand
right
the perspective.
Right.
Why are these things always joined together? Because what Ron DeSantis is doing is he's saying that I'm opposed to this, thesis of this Black perspective on history. I'm opposed to that because you injected this LGBTQ plus stuff. You injected that into the curriculum for African people. And I guess my issue is, why did we suddenly shift from the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s? Why did we suddenly shift from the fight for respect for our rights and inclusion of African history in the teaching of America's history? Why did we shift from that to now it's including African people in the teaching of American history and including queer people into that history? Why did we make that shift? Why didn't we just have, if you want to have a discipline that covers the issue of queer history, then call it queer history and create a curriculum that speaks to that and then teach it, right? But why did you make? It seems to me that the LGBTQ presence of African people as LGBTQ people, that role that portion of our population played in the historical struggle of African people for freedom and equality in this country, their role seems to me to be fairly very small, because I don't see them. I mean, I grew up with James, Foreman, I rolled with these people. I don't remember these people at all.
You know what, Mr. Hare? I think, and when we look at it from a scale that we don't know. And it was, and back then it was kept so low. I think it was there. These people within the struggle, and they probably participated, but they never came out or were allowed to come out. And because it was so taboo back then, there was really nothing that, or no way that they would be able to be identified at that time.
I would hope we could get some people to talk to us about that.
Yeah, I do want somebody.
Right, because I just think that if this is really real, then there should be a curriculum for LGBTQ history, and the black role in that LGBTQ history should be taught in that curriculum.
I understand.
But
I understand,
the curriculum of the inclusion of African people's history in the history of America, that seems to me to be this 15% of the history of America is black history.
Yeah.
Of course that should be taught.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis doesn't want that taught because he doesn't want black to be taught, period.
Right.
He doesn't want a whole lot of young white people to be offended.
Right, right.
Which is crazy.
And he doesn't want to see a whole lot of middle-aged black people becoming president of the United States or vice president of the United States. Let's be real about this thing.
Definitely.
That's what this is really all about. So hopefully we're making some sense. Hopefully you all will kind of incubate your thoughts over the course of the weekend. We'll try to hit back a little bit on this on Monday. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Monday, hearing for Living for the People, 91.3 FM. I don't know if Talia Rodriguez is going to be on today.
She's not here yet, so
she's not here yet?
I'm not thinking she's going to be on.
But if she is, even if she doesn't make it today, keep her in your thoughts, okay? She does a great job. Talia Talks.
Right.
Okay, thank you all for listening. We look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY.